So it occurred to me, since I don't show making the bands for the Slingshot that I made in my last video, I should just make a quick video on how to do that. And basically all you'll need is some rubber. Slingshot rubber. I prefer this TheraBand Gold. I haven't tried any other kind, but this is just the easiest. It's fairly cheap and it's very powerful and makes great slingshot bands. You will need a ruler, just a normal ruler, preferably wooden. I don't have a wooden one, but it doesn't have to be. Just less likely to cut the blade of your roller. Here's the roller. Mine is pretty old, so the blade is a little chipped, so that's why the cuts aren't as clean as they would be if I had a new one. You will need either a chisel, or I'm using an X-Acto knife and a chisel, or a sharp knife would work as well, but it needs to be pretty sharp if you want to cut the leather cleanly. Speaking of leather, you also need a piece of leather, obviously. This is just a piece of leather I got from a strap from some old horse riding gear. It's a little smelly, but after it's been used for a while, it should stop stinking. So the first step is to trim your piece of leather. I just like to fold it up and use my chisel, just rock it like that. And if it's sharp, it should cut right through. Just trim the ends, and then let's use my X-Acto knife to trim the edges. Definitely doesn't have to be perfect. And then I also like to round the edges. This isn't necessary, but it makes it look a little nicer. So now you have this clean piece of leather, which not clean on this side for me. Then to put the hole in it for the bands to go through, you want to just fold it like that. Let's say about a quarter of an inch. A little more than a quarter of an inch from the end, so to there. Just fold it like that, and then the other way. This might be a little tough if you have thick leather. And then you just hold it, put it on the end, or on your table like that, and then rock your chisel and cut off that corner. And booyah! You got a nice little hole. So I'll just repeat that for the other side. And then if you need to do any cleanup, make the holes a little better or a little bigger or anything, you can just fold it again and take off a little more. It's so nice to have a razor sharp chisel. Okay, so the next step is to cut your bands. So like I said, I'm using TheraBand Gold, and basically you just need to cut the length. I'm just using the length for one of my other bands. This one's a little long, so I'll just measure. Let's see. Okay, so it's about 9.5 inches. That would be a good place to start. And then you can always trim it down later if you want to. If you wanted to have a little more draw, or if you were doubling the bands up, you should probably go to 10 or maybe even 11. And then 9 if you wanted it to if you were putting some pretty light bands on it. So I'll just mark that out with a Sharpie. And then this section right here is already the perfect length or width for 2. So I'll just fold that over and measure that. This is a good width for a hammer slingshot like this, or like the one I'm making this for. So the width of the bands is about 1.25 inches, give or take, the more or less power you want. And then I'll just finish marking that. So width right here. So just easier for me to fold it like this and mark. So yeah, so if you double them up, they would be about 3 inches. Or lay them out flat on each side by side. They should be about 3 inches. So right there, and then this end is a little tapered, so I'll do just a tiny bit less. So that's marked like that. And now I use the ruler just like this to, I guess I should probably cut this out first. Just like that, and then cut it out. That's what you have when you don't have the nicest roller blade or newest. So I'll just cut that with a chisel. And now we have the piece that will be the bands. So I'll just do the same thing. You want to be careful, take it slow and press as hard as you can, or close to that. No, don't want to break the blade, but close, so that it will cut cleanly. You want to make this cut very clean, as clean as you can, because that will make the bands last longer. Most of these, unless they're small like that one, you don't want to try to pull them apart, because that could leave little gouges in the rubber. That will definitely make them last not nearly as long as they would have otherwise. So now you have these two strips of rubber, and the next step before you can do anything else is you want to cut some thin strips of rubber. These are going to go around the band, like right here, there, and also a little wrap right there around the rubber itself, so to keep on the pouch. So I'll just get another piece. I just have this little piece. I'll just cut out a few thin strips. And I like to make the ones that are going to be going around the slingshot itself a little thicker, a little wider. Okay, so now I have the strips of rubber, and we can get to tying them to the pouch. So you want to look at the narrower end unless they're unlike mine and perfectly straight. So this end is very slightly narrower than the other end. And you want to do the narrow end closer to the pouch because it adds a tad bit of speed, and the other way around will just make it not as good. So just double it up like that. Depending on the size of your hole and the size of your bands, you might need to double it up again. Just slide it through there, about that far, and then just pinch it on there like that. Some people use a little jig to hold with a clamp. I don't find that actually helps much. Then again, that might just be because mine wasn't very good. So then, before you start this, you want to get some needle nose pliers ready, or a needle or something that you can pull the rubber through once you get to that part. You just want to get that before you start this, because then you have to walk around holding it like this. So you just want to pinch it with your thumb like that, and then pull it pretty tight, and just start wrapping like that. It's easiest when the other band isn't attached, but then it gets hard. So keep wrapping like that until you have about that much on there, and then you take your needle nose pliers or your pin and wrap it through. I'll just show you how to do it with the needle nose pliers first. So wrap it around. I usually do it twice. It doesn't have to do it that much. Then once you have it on twice, you bring it down to right there. Then you open the pliers with one. If you can do it with one hand, just like that. Open them just a little bit, and you put the rubber strip in there, and then you pull it through gently so it doesn't let go. And then right there, and there you go. And then if you want to undo it, you can just pull that out, so it's super easy. And then you just cut the extra off. And booyah. And that will not come off if you've done it right for a long time. So now I'll just repeat that for the other side. Okay, so there is the finished band set. Should look something like that. And then the way you want to put this on the slingshot is with the bands flat, so not twisted, because that will make the accuracy messed up. So you want to make sure they're even. And it's really up to you whether you want the soft side in or out. I prefer in because it grips the ball a little better. For me anyways, different leathers could behave differently with that, so it's really up to what you have and personal preference. Okay, so here's a slingshot we're going to be putting the bands on. This is that new one that I made in the last video. I'm just going to put this down because I'm paranoid about scratching it. So, just going to put it on like that. Don't put it on the back, obviously. That would be stupid. So just put it like that and make sure it's lined up right, so you don't have to redo it. So just line everything up so you can see how it's going to look and everything. And you just hold it on with your thumb right there. I'm going to put it about an 1/8 of an inch below the groove, just so you have some extra room. And then put your strip of rubber right there, hold it really tight so the bands don't slide, and then just wrap it around the grooves, around the fork in the grooves, and keep doing that till you run out of rubber, because this needs to be very strong. And I already have to start over because I went too high. That's always like such a pain. And then just do the same thing you did with the bands, the needle nose pliers, or the pin. You also realize I forgot to show how to do it with the pin. So I'll just demonstrate that. So what you could do with a pin is just wrap the rubber around the pin like this, and then instead of gripping the pliers like if you had pliers, you just wrap it around like this and then pull it through with the needle or stick or pencil or whatever, like that. I'm gonna do it with the pliers though because I like it better and it's easier. And there's one, so I'll just repeat that for the other side. So I guess you don't really actually need to use all the rubber, because if you cut your strips a little long, then that would just wrap up the whole thing and they end up sliding off eventually. And you can see here why the grooves are almost essential, and actually essential for this kind of slingshot when it's slanted forwards like this. The strips just couldn't get any grip right there if there wasn't the groove. And again, I have to redo it. So it's kind of just a finicky process to get the bands to stay in the grooves, because back here, especially when you put the grooves, you put the bands down and then put wrap another strip behind it, it kind of pushes that first one up over the groove. So it's just a little finicky to get it to stay there, but you will get it eventually. So it's finished. The band set is finished and it's on the slingshot now, and those should not go anywhere.